What is happening out there, rotoscouts baseball fans? Happy Saturday, gang. Did not end up going to the track this morning. Woke up on time. Wasn't really feeling it. Had some stuff to do. Wasn't feeling like getting out of bed at 7 o'clock this morning, jamming through the article, kind of half-assing that, skipping the show on you guys. I just felt like, hey, let's have a quiet Saturday, a baseball-oriented kind of a day. Let's wind our way through this slate. We'll put the article together up on rotoscouts.com. We'll get all the home run picks, all the power index, the stack rankings, everything up and running like usual. Normal kind of a Saturday. Coming in to do the show and talk through this weird little 7-gamer that we've got. Ton of pitching on the board today. It's going to be an interesting one to talk through. I'm looking forward to it. I think we got a good one on deck. We've got Stephen B hanging out in the chat so far. Not sure who else is here yet, but chime in, say hello. Welcome to everybody. Hit the like button, hit the subscribe button. Always helps everybody out. Helps you guys know. Obviously, 2 o'clock show on a Saturday afternoon. Not entirely predictable what time I'm going live on a lot of these shows. This side, not that side. All right. So, just, hit the subscribe button so you know when the show starts up. Hit the likes because I like to see little thumbs ups when I go back and check the stream and see how we did for views. Spread the word, tell your friends, etc., etc. Let me get my placeholder lineups in here while we chat. What a weird slate last night, huh? Crazy, crazy high-scoring slate. We've got Fanatic in here. We've got Anthony T jumping in. What's going on, guys? Ricky Lee. Way yesterday went Kyle Muller optimal today. Yeah, that's quite possible, given the way that the baseball of it all. Obviously, we had Austin Gomber with a huge start last night after we talked about him. That didn't exactly go the way that I was thinking it would, but nice start by him. And, it just reinforces the point that bad pitchers can have good starts, that guys who are overall for the course of 31, 32 starts for a season, mediocre, can put up 7, 8, 10 good starts a year. And it's always important to remember that. Just didn't seem like the right spot to look for that start yesterday with the Coors Field. But, hey, we take our lumps when we get them. But, just crazy. If you didn't have the Braves after the first few innings, you were pretty much shot yesterday. We had them as the top-ranked team, second by home runs, top by projected fantasy points. Not a lot changes today. They look like a dynamite option again today. Warm, wind blowing out, all those good things. A little bit of rain in the area for that game, and they're facing a very good pitcher, Yuri Perez. We'll talk about it when we get there, but just another dominant spot for the Braves, who hit 6 home runs last night. Finished the month of June with just record-setting pace in home runs, run creation. 21-4 record, I think, was the best record they've had since they were in Milwaukee, when they were the Milwaukee Braves way back when. So pretty good month of June for Atlanta. I think they're going to be hyper-relevant again today. But, just overall weird, just pitching in all different corners, up and down, a lot of low-end pitchers that succeeded, a lot of high-end guys that didn't quite get there. I had a lineup on FanDuel that had 260-some-odd points, was chasing the slate leaders, and had a 0 at pitcher when that Yankees game scrapped. I had Liberator in that lineup, so I had to switch it. I went to a Mariners reliever. Ended the slate with, I think, still 260 some odd FanDuel points, which is normally like a slate winning score. And Munoz, the reliever from Seattle, ended up putting like a -9 on it, and it still finished that high. So it's just a stupid slate. Like we talked about on the show and in content on the site yesterday, it just was teed up to be a slate that was going to be won by bats somewhere along the way with all those options and the ridiculousness of it. So the relay throw on DK went to a Lorenzen and Gomber lineup? Jesus. Fun stuff. That's why we play the games, right? Let's get into this one. I think we've got a lot more pitching, oddly, to work with today. So we'll talk not about the last game first. We'll talk about the first game first. I like these Saturday slates where like all the games start up at 4 o'clock. It's just kind of like a sprint to the finish. I think these are a lot of fun. So diving into this one, this is a good exemplar of just kind of the pitching that we're dealing with. Good pitching on both sides of this one, with Hunter Brown going for the Astros, Nathan Eovaldi on the bump for the Rangers. I feel like Eovaldi's really cheap in this spot. I know he hasn't been elite over the last 6, 10 starts, whatever it's been, but or 6, 8 starts maybe, but overall for the season, 16 starts, 105 and a third innings, so one of the league leaders in innings pitched, and typically just works really deep into games. 24.8% on the strikeouts, 5.7% walks, a 2.82 ERA, a 3.47 xFIP. Like, even after the bumps in the road, all of this still looks really good. So I have no real issues going to Evaldi here. I like the price. I think he's in a good spot, price wise. I'm not sure where he's going to be owned. I'm kind of curious about what that's looking like. I'll cheat and take a quick peek to see where our pals over at RG have him. I won't give the number, but I'll talk about whether or not he's maybe going to be popular or not here, because I really don't have a good read on it. Yeah, not that popular. Single digit popularity for him on the FanDuel slate. At that price, that's kind of surprising. It's a deep slate. There's a lot of different spots to spend ownership shares, but like getting Evaldi in that spot against a basically scuffling Houston lineup, kind of, is that a better play than getting to Justin Verlander, who's struggling a lot more for cheaper against the Giants, who are probably hitting better than the Astros? I'm not sure. We've got options like Charlie Morton. We've got options like Kyle Bradish, Corbin Burns, Hunter Brown on the other side of this one. There's a lot of different spots to go to. Obviously, Zach Wheeler is a different animal at his price at the top of the board. We'll get there. But yeah, if Evaldi's not going to be that popular, I kind of want to get invested in some shares here. The Astros, overall, just kind of a middling offense. Against right-handed pitching this year, they have a 99 WRC plus collectively for the active roster. That sits in the middle of the league. I think it was 16th out of 30 teams. They have a 21.3% strikeout rate. That's good, but it's not the elite, 16, 17% rate that they used to put up. A 152 ISO, that's fairly non-threatening. So you've got a couple premium hitters up at the top, but only Jose Altuve has kind of been himself in his limited 129 plate appearances, 5 homers, 5 steals, 211 ISO, 143 WRC plus. Altuve's playing like himself and is basically a little bit cheap because he missed some time. So you can take a discount on Altuve, but Bregman's been here the whole season, not really hitting like himself when we think of the long-term Alex Bregman. I think this is kind of who he is now. 250-ish hitter, 12 home runs, 160 ISO, finished the year around 25 homers. That kind of makes sense. So I think the price is appropriate on Bregman, but he hasn't been great this year. Not really squaring up the ball at all. Kyle Tucker's been down this year. Still a good hard hit rate. Good output for double-digit counting stats so far and a 126 WRC plus, but he hasn't been the ridiculous producer that Kyle Tucker's been over the last couple of seasons. Abreu's been bad. Jainer Diaz is I know he had a nice little month there and won himself a full-time role or a more regular role, but he's a backup catcher. I mean, let's be honest about who this kid is. He blasted 7 home runs and 154 plate appearances, but he's already cooling. So, we don't want to get carried away there. Mauricio Dubon hitting 6, Corey Julks, Jake Myers, Martin Maldonado. It's not even the best possible version of this version of the Astros that Nate Evaldi is going to be facing today. I think Evaldi's cheap for this spot. He projects really well. You can see it, 38.6 in the FanDuel scoring. That's a high projection, one of the highest total on the board. So I really like the Evaldi spot here. You can get to some Astros coming back the other way. They're very affordable. Those top 3 hitters are really where you want to live with these 3 guys and then mix in a couple of these guys along the way. It's a fairly straightforward lineup. There's not a lot of mystery with Houston right now. Julks, Dubon was more productive as a fill-in for Altuve earlier in the season in the leadoff spot. He got a little bit of correlated scoring from that, but isn't much of a major league bat or at least not a big-time producer for DFS anyway. Decent hit tool, multi-position, toolsy kind of a guy in terms of being able to use him as a utility man, but not really a standout for DFS. Julks had, 2-3 games where he's bent slates a little bit with a couple of homers and some stolen bases, but overall, 6 homers on the year, 12 steals, and 95 WRC plus. Myers, Maldonado, or just, take them or leave them, mix and match type guys. So it's a really non-threatening, not overly appealing Astros lineup to go against Evaldi here. At the same time, on the other side, Hunter Brown, I feel like those are too high priced for Hunter Brown in this matchup. He's been really, really good. 27.4% strikeouts, a 3.62 ERA, a 3.13 xFIP is outstanding. 15 starts, 87 innings as a rookie. He's been really good. No arguing with his production so far, but there's things that don't necessarily play well against this hard-hitting Rangers lineup that's just been so good all year long, like the 43.9% hard hits, the 90-plus miles an hour of exit velo. 7.2% barrels is fine, and the 3.9-degree average launch angle is very, very good. And this is what's been saving him in terms of the home run output. He's been cutting launch angle, like was something that we look for with a lot of pitchers. I just worry that today's the day that we get 1 or 2 mistakes going up against this premium Rangers lineup that is so good at hitting home runs, that's so good at creating runs, getting on base, correlated scoring, turning the lineup over with sequencing from the bottom of the lineup that's so productive that we've talked about. If Brown was in the 8s, I think he makes a lot more sense. We're getting like an 8s kind of a projection here for him. And I think this is an accurate-ish kind of a projection. He's, again, been good. 27.4% strikeouts as a rookie. 10.7% swinging strike rate. 28.2% CSW. Not elite strike throwing numbers, but good. Especially for a young kid in his first year. So I like Brown. I think he can get to a few shares. I just wish that the price was better. I imagine he's going to be extremely, extremely low owned in this spot. So as an ownership play, maybe you can get there. But there are, on a 14-pitcher slate, there are 7 or 8 pretty good options. He's at like kind of the bottom of that list. So it's not great there. I'd be rostering Rangers before I roster Hunter Brown. Even with his ability and a demonstrable ability to keep the ball in the park, I think there's tons of upside for Semien, Seager, Lowe, Adolis Garcia, Josh Young, Jonah Heim, Ezekiel Duran. Travis Jankowski at the bottom of the lineup might steal you a base. He's hitting 306, 417, 396, creating runs 36% better than average in his 133 chances this year. And he's really cheap. He helps you offset any of the pricing concerns from the top of the lineup. But he's Travis Jankowski, so we don't want to get carried away with him. Leote has been excellent from the bottom of the lineup. 126 WRC plus. I mentioned this yesterday. That's really hard to do from the bottom of a lineup. 9 home runs, 8 stolen bases. He's just been involved in a lot of what's gone on with this team. He's having a really nice year, over 264 from the 9 spot. So I like Leote as a moderate use type wraparound if you're building a bunch of Ranger stacks. I think you can go 1 through 7 pretty consistently with this team. Just mix and match your way through 1 through 7. And then bolt Leote on for a couple additional shares and throw Jankowski into a few. If you build 25 Rangers stacks, throw Jankowski into 5 of them. So, very playable lineup from top to bottom, though. You get the price offset with Nathaniel Lowe and all his production. 274, 368, 421 on the year, 122 WRC plus, 8 home runs. He's got moderate power. He's a good run creator, and he's cheap at first base in the heart of that lineup. So I just like how he helps you get to Semien and Seager, or Semien or Seager and Garcia, or Young. Young also does that, so does Jonah Heim. They're both fairly cheap for their upside. 17 home runs on the season for Josh Young, and he only costs $4,600. That's pretty cheap. $3,400 on FanDuel is about right. Arguably, $200-$300 cheap for Josh Young there. 219 ISO, creating runs 26% better than average. Quality bat in the middle of the order there. So I like the Rangers up and down. Hunter Brown's good. He's got a shot to hold them down and keep their run production down. But one of the better lineups in baseball. We can take our DFS shots with them for sure here. Take a look at the Twins and the Orioles. This is nice. We've got most of the lineups confirmed. Got Steven Leibowitz in. We've got Jake Swales. We've got Wes Maxwell. Willie K. What's going on, gang? Jake says, Lorenzen and Gomber with all stud Braves bats and a White Sox 3-man with Remio, Robert, and Andrews. Ridiculous. I wish I had that Norm Macdonald clip from Dirty Work where he's just in the prison after the after something bad happens to him off camera that they don't specify. But he's just yelling back to the prison. Ridiculous. Just ridiculous. That's kind of how I feel about that. That's insane. What else is going on? Not a lot going on in the chat. Wait, yesterday, yeah, Kyle Muller, we talked about that already. So let's dive into this one. Carlos Correa off the top of the Twins lineup, the home run pick of the day. I was just kind of feeling it. I don't exactly know why. There's better projected guys like Byron Buxton in that lineup. And Kyle Bradish hasn't been filthy for home run power this season, but kind of just stood out, Carlos Correa, when I was looking at the Twins today. So I went with it. He's got 11 on the season, a 191 ISO. He's underperformed in everything else that he's done, but he's cheap, $44.29 for Carlos Correa at shortstop. Fills a premium position in a lineup that I expect to be one of the more productive lineups of the day. I think that's a really good spot. So I like going to Correa off the top of the Twins. I don't love Edouard Julien. He's a premium rookie, highly regarded hitter, but he hasn't really done much. 135 plate appearances. He's got 4 home runs. 3 of them came early in the season. Hasn't really moved off of his current totals in a while. Still 117 WRC plus. Productive kid, and he's cheap. 3,100, 2,700 at second base. You can definitely jam him into some lineups. And then Buxton, Kirilloff, Lewis, Kepler, those are all playable parts. Joey Gallo's a playable part in the Twins lineup for home run upside for 3,500, 2,500. I wish Gallo was hitting higher up in the lineup, obviously, get him a few more plate appearances, but we're really just home run hunting when we go with Joey Gallo, and he's very, very cheap for that upside. So I like going there. Michael A at the bottom of the lineup, 2,100, 2,300. You can use a few shares of him to try and find that odd duck home run that he hits from time to time. Vasquez hasn't done much at the plate this year. So for me with the Twins, it's like 1 through 6 with a few shares of Joey, with a few shares of Michael A if I'm building out a bunch of them. I think I want to get to some Kyle Bradish though. 5,800, 7,800. Those are very cheap prices for a kid who's not a bad pitcher. 72 innings, 14 starts, 22.6% strikeouts, 6.7% on the walks, 3.96 xFIP, 3.75 ERA. Has given up a little bit of premium contact in the form of 8.7% barrels, 43.7% hard hits, 90 plus on the exit velo, but it hasn't really burnt him so far. 2.36% home runs. Somewhat effective at keeping the ball down at a 9.2 degree average launch. As long as it's under 10. It's relatively capable of keeping the ball in the yard. Similar 10.6% swinging, 28.4% CSW to what we were seeing for Brown. So if we're going to Brown at a higher price in a worse matchup, I think we can certainly go to Bradish with all the strikeout upside that the Twins offer. They do have power when they connect, but they're bad for strikeouts, this Minnesota lineup. We've been chasing them a little bit already this season. Them, the Mariners are two good teams that we chase for strikeouts. The Royals are a team that's pretty mediocre that we chase for strikeouts, but the Twins are definitely high up on my target list in terms of finding strikeouts at fairly low ownership with pitchers like this who land in cheap prices and can all of a sudden have some upside. So I think it's a good spot here for Kyle Bradish. I think he's got the upside to find a handful of strikeouts. You can see big fat 29% strikeout rate on that Twins lineup there. This is our aggregate strikeout rate. So 29% strikeouts. That's a lot of strikeouts sitting on the table for him. He's got to fade the power of Correa, Buxton, Kepler, Joey Gallo. There's not a lot of great talents in that lineup. So I think Bradish has a little bit on the bone here. Jake Swale says, I love Bradish today. I like Kramer yesterday, and he let us down, but you can make the case Bradish is better than Kramer. Yeah, I would make that case, actually. I think Bradish is the more talented of the two starters and a little bit higher strikeout upside. So I do think there's a good reason to go back to the well here with Orioles pitching against the Twins. Limited doses, you don't want 150 shares of it, but I think, especially at the DK price, he's kind of a necessary SP2 on DK. And then on FanDuel at 78, he's got upside to pitch to the quality start here and find a few strikeouts. So I like Bradish, but I will roster some Twins on the other side. Like I said, Correa is the home run pick. Obviously, I'm going to use Twins bats. So I'll answer back most of my Bradish shares with hedge stacks of Twins. I'll have plenty of them. I'll be focused on the guys that I talked about, the top third of the lineup there, and then mix and match your way through the Kirilloffs, Lewis, Keplers, and Gallos of the world. Orioles side of things, definitely in play. Cedric Mullins, Rushman, Santander, O'Hearn, who's been playing over his head, Hayes, and Gunnar, at the very least. 1 through 6 there is pretty playable. I think Ober's playable, though, too. I like him a lot better at 7,700 on DK than I do at 9,700 on FanDuel. But you can see there's a pretty strong projection there for him. 24.2% strikeouts on the year, a 4.35 xFIP, a 1.02 whip, a 2.97 ERA. I believe he's more the 4.35 xFIP kind of a pitcher. That's the more truthful of those two run-related numbers. That's the one that, factors in things that are under his control and not the luck that he, does or doesn't get from where the ball falls and where his, it's pronounced Bradish, not Bradish. Got it. Bradish like radish, not Bradish like crayfish. Plain Jane coffee mugs today. So thank you for that, by the way, Fanatic. I appreciate that. Always willing to take a correction on something like that. I definitely appreciate it. I'll try and get it right from now on. Don't want to hurt people's ears. So Bailey Ober, or Bailey Ober, decent play. Like I was saying, I think he's more that 4.35 xFIP type, but the hard hits are good. 33.7% hard hits. Doesn't really get tattooed. Doesn't tend to get completely blown up. He's had a few bad starts, this year and through his career, but typically a fairly consistent, talented major league pitcher. He's not an ace, but he's a B minus, somewhere around there. So if we're evaluating this pitching board, I don't love the price on FanDuel, but I would expect that's going to render him entirely unowned. And then I think he's very much in play as an SP2 on the DK slate for 7,700. So I think we're going to some Bailey Ober. Jake says, I like the mispronunciations. It's a bit. Yeah, we're all over the place. So, I think some Bailey Ober works there for sure. And then if you're going to the Orioles, that top end with Mullins, Rushman, Santander as your core bats, and then some Hayes. He's been super productive this year. O'Hearn, the price is right still for what he's done. He's been very productive, over 119 plate appearances, but the way I put it in the article today, I do not expect that the next 119 plate appearances are going to be nearly as good. So we've probably already gotten the upside from Ryan O'Hearn, but if he's hitting cleanup, which he is, 3,400, 2,600, you can absolutely play him in stacks of Orioles. He's just not a priority. Gunnar has been a priority bat pretty much for the course of the season, and certainly for the last month and change with this team. He's really caught on. 11 home runs, 218 ISO, 121 WRC plus. I would skip O'Hearn for Gunnar in a lot of lineups. Not that they play the same position. Hicks, Westberg, Frazier. Westberg's a premium rookie, 3,200, 2,700. Fills second and third on DK. Shortstop on FanDuel. Very playable option late in the lineup. And then Hicks is Hicks, and Frazier's a semi-capable veteran bat. He's actually got 9 homers and 7 steals on the season, so it's been a little bit productive from the bottom of the lineup. So for this one, it's both pitchers, at least in moderate to small doses. More enthusiasm for them as values on DK as SP2s. And then some mid-range shares of both stacks. A little bit of a four corners opportunity here. We're going to see that a lot today. Corbin Burns, Johan Oviedo. This is a tough one. Corbin Burns has been all over the map this year. He hasn't been awful in most of his starts, but he hasn't really been good in most of his starts. He's had a few starts where he's given up 4 or 5 runs and only struck out 4 or 5 hitters, and just hasn't really delivered in anything approaching the form that we typically expect from this pitcher that we've gotten over the last few years. The strikeouts are way down at 22.6%. That was 30.5% last year. It was 35.6% the year before. Something's up. It's not great. 4.10 ERA, 4.19 xFIP. He could absolutely still deliver against this Pirates team, though. That's where we run into problems. This is not a good lineup that he's going to be facing. There's plenty of strikeouts available for him. They don't have their best hitter in Brian Reynolds in the lineup. It's still Corbin Burns. He's cheap. It's 8,700. It's 9,500. The struggles are kind of factored in. It's not entirely like when we look at Verlander. We're going to see Verlander priced at a point that is just appropriate, like we talked about the last time with him. It's just appropriate for who he is now, statistically. Not even like he used to be Justin Verlander, now he's struggling, so he's discounted a bit. I think that's kind of where Burns falls. Maybe less so on DK, but certainly at 95 on FanDuel. I think we're just getting like, this guy's an ace, but he's really having a weird year kind of pricing. Where with Verlander, I think we're just getting like, yeah, this guy's just like this kind of pitcher now, and this is what he costs, and I think it's appropriate. So I'm willing to pay full freight, I think, for Burns maybe one more time here. It's just too good a matchup to avoid at 95, at 87, especially at 87 on DK. I think you just need to plan for him and take the risk. If it goes bust, it goes bust. But for DFS purposes, I think we still need to ride with this pitcher at these prices in this matchup. If he was facing the Rangers, it would be easier to get away from, or the Braves certainly would be easy to get away from. But in this matchup, it's difficult. I think you can go with a few shares of Pirates on the other side. It's not great, though. You're looking for, like, McCutch, Jack Sawinski, Carlos Santana, maybe, as a 3-man. Santana's been really hot, rampaging through the last couple of weeks. He's up to 9 home runs, a 103 WRC+. Won the game with a walk-off yesterday in style. Sawinski's got their true power bat, 16 homers on the season. McCutch up to 10 homers, 9 stolen bases, a 135 WRC+. He started out great and then kind of cooled. Maybe we'll catch a second wind here over the next couple of weeks. But 287, 399, 455. He's productive enough in spurts for price. So if you're going to the Pirates, it's those 3 guys. It's the rookie Henry Davis, who's hitting 5th today. But like we've talked about, he loses a lot of his quality if he's not getting catcher eligibility on that DK slate, which kind of sucks. They should just give it to him. He's still got it on FanDuel, but you don't need it over there. 317, 391, 439, 2 steals on a homer. That plays a lot better for a rookie catcher at price than it does in the outfield. He's just kind of an also-ran type in the outfield. Jock is leading off for instead of Lamont for San Fran. All right, I like that. Get Jock a potential like quarter of an extra plate appearance in projections. That works. Definitely like the upside for Jock. We'll get there. So this one, if we're going to Pirates, it's really those key bats. The bottom of the lineup: Tucupita Marcano, Jared Triolo, Ji-Hwan Bae, Jason DeLay, and then up top with Josh Palacios. There's not a lot to like in that grouping. So really, it's just this core of Pirates hitters that I'm really interested in. If you get carried away and build 10, even 15 Pirate stacks, you can absolutely and should absolutely bolt on some Palacios at min price in the leadoff spot. You can bolt on some Marcano or some Ji-Hwan Bae and look for some stolen base upside. There's some reason to go to some of those guys if you're building. You don't want just 20 shares of just these guys, right? We do want to mix and match it, but it's just not a great spot going up against Burns. Even if they get to him, I just see it as more the 4 runs, and he only struck out 4 and went 6 innings and didn't have a great game, didn't find a quality start. That's kind of what I would see on a bad day for Burns, and there's still a clear path to upside. On the right day, he just turns things around, and we're just sitting pretty with Corbin Burns at a cheap price. So it's not great, it's not comfy, but I think it's kind of necessary on a slate where we're just kind of spreading a bunch of quality pitching options. Johan Oviedo on the other side, 6,000, 8,500. That's a decent price. He's an effective enough pitcher. 20.3% strikeout rate. You'd like that to be a little higher. You'd like the 8.9% walks to be a little bit lower. But he doesn't allow a lot of power. Moderate amount of premium contact, 1.78% home runs. Good swinging strike rate, decent CSW. 4.06 ERA, 4.48 xFIP. Going up against the Brewers lineup that has been mediocre. Up and down, but look at this. Look at the run creation marks. That's a good way to look at it. The average WRC plus for the confirmed lineup for the Brewers is 83. So on the average, they create runs 17% worse than average. The only guy who's above average right now is Christian Yelich. That's pretty telling about this lineup and the quality. So for 6,000, Oviedo's definitely in that DK SP2 conversation. For 85, I think he could reach value on FanDuel. 6 strikeouts, 6 clean innings, 85 hundo. That works. Not one to get carried away with. Limited shares, 10, 15 shares, 10% of 150. Isn't crazy. I imagine that'll put you well ahead of the field on FanDuel. DK, he might get a little bit more popular at that price as an SP2, but I think it'll be easy enough to get ahead of the field on him. It's one where you can say, hey, I'm not going to ride that train. I'm not going to go with you on that one, Tara. I think that's your most viable guy to just leave behind and just, kind of not follow along. You can see he doesn't project great, but it's just a DFS position to occupy. If he's going to be at low pricing, those prices open up access to other big important things. And we talked about that in Discord a little bit last night when the Braves were going crazy and those low end pitchers were leading slates. In a lot of ways, on a day like that, where you did have a standout start at Coors Field from Gomber at ridiculously low ownership, but a lot of the other pitchers that we were seeing at the top of boards and on FanDuel, somebody was competitive late in the night with Carlos Carrasco in their pitching spot. He only had a 24 or a 27 or something in FanDuel scoring. So what those pitchers were doing was only just coming in at such a salary point that it unlocked the ability to stack Braves and premium White Sox, or stack Braves and premium Dodgers, or Braves and premium Twins. I think went off a little bit last night in one of my lineups. So it's just about what they can open up and unlock for you in combinations in other spots sometimes. And in a good enough start, at 6,000, Johan Oviedo only needs to give you a good enough start here. He doesn't need to dominate the slate. He doesn't need to beat all the other pitchers. He just needs to beat them at the price differential that he comes in, and then you've got to get those bats right. So if he helps you roster Acuna and Olsen in a Braves stack, he's already done his job for you. Now he just needs to book you a few points. So that's kind of what you're looking for with a play like Oviedo. On the other side, with the Brewers, I will have some of them, a little bit of interest in some of them, but they're not great. They haven't been hitting for a ton of power. They haven't been creating runs. Yelich I'll have. 4,200, 3,400 is just too cheap for Christian Yelich. Winker's been awful all season, but he only cost 23 in the 2-hole. Adames and all his power, kind of limited in terms of the output and the expectation right now against Oviedo in the model here. 12 home runs on the season, but 199, 289, 368. He's a far cry from reliable at the best. Rowdy, to Larry C's amazement, if he's in the chat, is below the magic number in the home run model today. Drops to 8.89. He was below when he was hitting third in the original projected, and then this one dropped down to the cleanup in the confirmed and dropped even further. So a little bit coming through now for Rowdy against a pitcher who hasn't allowed a lot of home runs or a lot of power this season. Caratini, Anderson, Turang, Perkins, Tapia at the bottom of the lineup, those are mix and match parts at best. A little bit of power output from Caratini as a sneaky catcher for cheap on DK. 4 home runs, a sturdy contact profile with 52.1% hard hits for Caratini. So if you're looking for a sneaky catcher on DK, I kind of like him. He's a part-time player, so you temper expectations. But when he does play, I think you can get sneaky with him, is what I'm getting at. Anderson, 2-rank, Perkins, Tapia at the bottom. Not great. No Joey Weimer in the bottom of the lineup today. Limits the bottom. Tapia's got like moderate power and a little bit of speed, but never really put it together at this level. Perkins, similar story. Former second-round pick, but hasn't done much in the show. Only cost $2,000, $2,400. They're easy to click into lineups to offset price, but they're not great. They're going to see fewer plate appearances. They're limited options at the bottom of the lineup here. So only moderate interest in bats on either side of this one. Definitely interested in Corbin Burns, despite all the warts, despite the current year struggles, and some interest in Oviedo value. Nats in the Phils. Craig Bergeron. Terry, I've been watching all these DFS shows for years, and you have the best info. No nonsense MLB DFS show. Thank you, buddy. I appreciate that. I like to throw in a little bit of nonsense from time to time. I don't want to be exclusively no nonsense. Don't take me wrong here. I love a good little bit of nonsense, but I don't need to waste 45 minutes of an hour-long show talking about hot potato chips and so on and so forth, as my pals over at the other place tend to do from time to time. Love those guys. Anyway, Zach Wheeler, Mackenzie Gore. I mean, if you were watching the last couple of days, we spent, 15 minutes talking Indiana Jones. By the way, all 3 of the original trilogy have been on through the morning while I've been writing on one of the Showtime channels. The scene where they're Indy and Sean Connery are flying away from the Germans, and he accidentally shoots the tail off the plane is on right now. I might just turn and watch this the rest of the show. Talk about nonsense. All right, let's get back into it. Zach Wheeler, 91, 10-5. Top pitcher on the day, I think, or first or second overall in terms of my projections on the day. Just a really good, reliable pitcher who I go to time and again. I fully believe in Zach Wheeler's talent. 3.86 ERA is up a little higher than we would typically expect. 3.66 xFIP, 26.8% strikeouts is right in line with typical expectations. 5.6% walks is very good. 12.9% swinging strikes is very good. 1.52% home run rate on only 86.6 miles an hour of exit velo, 5.4% barrels, 36.4% hard hits. Just really good at keeping bat off ball and facing the Nationals. They're a low strikeout bunch. I do fully credit them for that, but that is all they do well. Lane Thomas is having a very good year. I won't take that away from him either. He's having a really good year. I forgot to switch Luis Garcia and take the pitcher out, but who cares? Garcia's a bolt-on infielder type. He's got a decent amount of correlated scoring potential, I guess, if this lineup happens to score. But he's creating runs 14% worse than average on the season in 314 plate appearances. He hits second. That's his prime benefit for DFS purposes, just his position in the batting order. You could plug basically anybody into that spot, and he would be just as good a value. So don't love Luis Garcia. Heimer Candelario has done all of his damage against righties this year with his 10 home runs, his 205 ISO, but he's super inconsistent. He's not that good of a hitter, and he's going up against Wheeler, who's really good at limiting home runs, which is the only reason I would roster Candelario, is looking for that cheap home run. So I don't love that spot. Keibert Ruiz, good power bat behind the plate. I like him in the long term. 31-28 hitting cleanup today. If I'm rostering Nationals, he would definitely be in my lineups. I wouldn't want to skip him. But I'm not going to be really getting carried away with many National stacks at all. I just don't like that spot at all. So top 4 for the Nats for me if I'm going there, but I'm really not. Dom Smith, Corey Dickerson, Ildemaro Vargas, CJ Abrams, Derek Hill. That is a really weak back end. That feeds upside in Wheeler's direction in my mind. So no real love for the Nats. Mackenzie Gore on the mound for Washington. Weird spot. He projects okay. This is, it's a competitive projection at 75-84, certainly value priced correctly. There's a lot in the strikeout rate that happened early in the season when he was up in the mid-30s in what looked like a real, breakout over the first month and change. He was really limiting power, striking out the world, not walking anybody. And a lot of that's changed over the last month and a half, 2 months. Now allowing an 11.1% barrel rate, 46.7% hard hits, 3.56% home runs, walking almost 10%. Strikeouts are down significantly over the last couple months. This still looks good, but that's come down from a mid-30s, so that means everything's been a lot worse. Still a 13% swing, but a 1.41 whip. A lot of flaws here going up against the dangerous Phillies lineup that I do really like getting to in this spot. So I think I'm a lot more enthusiastic about Phillies. Vegas was as well. Vegas had them up over 5 in the implied runs. So I think there's a lot of reason to go to Phillies bats here. Kyle Schwarber with all his power in the first spot there, 15.4% barrels, 47.3% hard hits leading off, 21 homers on the season, a 253 ISO. We continue to not care that he's hitting 184. Just don't care. 16.1% walk rate makes up for any lack of batting average anyway, so he's perfectly fine for run creation. Trey Turner and Nicky Castellanos should switch prices. Other than that, they're both perfectly playable. Turner's not been good this season, but he's a superstar shortstop that eventually will turn around. There's just too much history with Trey Turner to not expect this to normalize at some point, and still has provided some counting stats, 8 homers, 18 stolen bases. It's just the power hasn't been regular, the average is way down, the run creation is obviously way down at 15% below average. I continue to believe, and I'll just book the discount when I can, by averaging them together with Nick Castellanos, who's having an outrageously good season, and 4,500, 3,600. So those are just weird prices for two players that I like getting to. You could argue that Bryce Harper's a little bit expensive at 61 on the DK slate, given that he's not really hitting for power right now. The barrels are there, 12.4% barrels, but the hard hits are down. He's only hit 3 home runs. He's only got a 103 ISO and 217 plate appearances since his return. I would suspect that that's the longest stretch of limited power in Bryce Harper's illustrious career so far. 217 plate appearances with only 3 dingers and a 103 ISO. I doubt he's gone 217 plate appearances with that kind of production for power in the past. So it's a little weird to still get him at 61. 36 is probably about right on FanDuel, especially with the first base eligibility added. It's perfectly viable to go to Bryce Harper. I'm not saying not to. In fact, if the 61 keeps people away from him, then he's even more appealing. I don't think the power is gone. I think it's just working its way back after the major reconstructive elbow surgery that he underwent. I think it's fair to expect it to take a little bit for the power to come back. Everything else has been intact. He's stealing bases. He's getting on. He's hitting for average. So no issues going to Harper. He's creating runs 10% better than average. You can definitely go there. I just wanted to point out that I think 61 is a little bit high. JT, 5,000, 3,000, perfectly playable on both sites as a star catcher. It's the weaker version of the bottom end of the lineup. We like him better against righties when you get all those good lefties at the bottom of the lineup. Harrison, Bohm, Sosa, and Pache are bolt-on pieces, mix and match guys. All of them have a little bit of quality. Bohm is the regular in that group, 3,600, 3,000, third base, first base eligible, 270, 314, 402 on the season, 93 WRC plus, 7 home runs. Productive, effective bat, former first-round pick, having a good season in 280 plate appearances. Harrison, Sosa, and Pache are mix and match parts. Jake says Terry's actual knowledge of baseball and its history makes for a supreme understanding of advanced analytics. Wow, thank you, buddy. That's quite the compliment. 40 years of baseball fan. Yeah, yep, 44 years in the books, and I guess 45th year of baseball fandom as I go from 44 to 45 this year, which is crazy in and of itself. It's weird to get to the point where everyone in the league is definitely younger than you, and yet you kind of still look at it as like, ooh, these guys play baseball professionally. Like if I met, let's say, Garrett Cole, I'd be like, oh my God, you're Garrett Cole. And he's like 15 years younger than me. It's just weird, you know? It's just a weird spot to be in life. But anyway, so no real interest in Matt Gore. Some, like 7,500, you can definitely play some value shares and hunt for that upside. But out of the guys who people are probably going to roster a little bit, at what are fair prices, I don't love the spot for Gore. I'm more enthused about the Phillies bats. So more Phillies bats for me than Gore. Definite interest in Zach Wheeler. I'll have quite a bit of Zach Wheeler, even at the FanDuel price. Love the price at 91 on DK, by the way. A lot of mistake pricing on pitching on the DK slate. A lot of spots to take advantage of today. It's just a weird DK slate. So a lot of enthusiasm for both things on the Phillies side, not so much on the Nationals side. Gore does strike out lefties at a high clip. Fair point. Fair point. 2 lefties in the lineup here for Philly, 2 of their key bats, obviously, and 2 guys who do strike out at a decent clip. Schwarber strikes out at an aggressive clip. I'm just hunting for, like Schwarber, I'm not, what's the Mackenzie Gore plus Kyle Schwarber strikeout? Does that change my read on Kyle Schwarber all that much? Not really, because I'm already expecting 2 or 3 strikeouts from Schwarber. I'm just looking for that one plate appearance where he put bat on ball in a significant way. So it doesn't really change the read on that. Maybe on the Harper play a little bit more. But that's definitely good to mention. I appreciate you dropping that in there, Jake. Craig saw the new Indy last night. I saw it on Thursday, Craig. I really enjoyed it. I was saying my take was, I went into it the day before saying I don't expect it to be Raiders, and it certainly wasn't Raiders. But it was an enjoyable ride. I kind of wish it was more practical stunts than computer stunts. Like, go back to the old feel with all the guys actually jumping off of horses onto tanks and shit in the desert and smashing into walls like they did when they shot those originals. But I get, for insurance and financial reasons and everything, that since they don't have to do that anymore, why would they? But I felt like it was a little bit missing that aspect of it. But overall, I really enjoyed the flick. Had a good time with Indy one last time. So I talked about that a little bit yesterday too. Also stayed around as the credits were rolling just to hear that John Williams score one more time. All right, let's move on. White Sox with their everyday home run hitter, Lou Bob. 24 home runs on the season. A 300 ISO for Lou Bob. Seemingly hits a home run every single day since I acquired him in the Dynasty League, which I love. And every single time he does, I send my buddy Lou a text message letting him know that he hit another home run. Because that's fun. I like the spot for the White Sox here quite a bit. I think they're going to be really popular. I think it's a killer spot going up against Kyle Muller, who has had a lot of success in the minors and no success at the major league level. In 2021, he struck out 23% over a handful of starts when he was with the Braves. And then went back to the minors, pitched well in the minors, came back up, wasn't good, got traded last year, made a few starts last year, wasn't good, made 10 starts early this year, wasn't good, 47 innings, 14.3% strikeouts, 10% walks, 8.04 ERA, a much, much better, but still really bad, 5.26 xFIP, 12.3% barrels, 92.5% miles an hour average exit velo, 50.9% hard hits. Kyle Muller's just soft tossing little hittable balls up there right now. So, yeah, not a great spot for Muller. Definite interest in the White Sox bats. Benintendi's come to life a little bit up at the top of the lineup. He's up to 103 WRC plus, which is good because Timmy Anderson's just continuing to slide. He's at 46 now. But Benny's got a good hit tool. He's getting on base at a much better clip now. Had a down start to the year, but has really come on. Not hitting any power, not hitting for any power, but we just want him to get on base, provide correlated scoring, maybe some stolen base upside, and some run creation. Tim, I talked about Tim a little bit yesterday. I like that you can get him at second base on DK now for $3,700, second and short. $2,500 is a great price for that player over time at shortstop, but he's having a terrible season. 226, 265, 264, a .038 ISO, 46 WRC plus. The same 8 stolen bases that he's had since the second week of the season. I know he got hurt. I'm sure he's probably still playing hurt, but he's not doing the team any favors. He's certainly not doing DFS gamers any favors right now. It's just tough to get to Timmy Anderson here. So I don't love that spot in the lineup right now, but if I'm stacking White Sox, I will continue to go to him because it's Tim Anderson for cheap. I hope I get the right day, the 2 stolen bases, maybe some runs, but yeah, it's pretty thin for Timmy right now. For all his ridiculous power upside, for all his run creation this year, for the fact that he's carried this team, I feel like DraftKings algorithm must be looking at the team record or something when it prices these guys, because there's no way in hell that Luis Robert should be 4,600 on this slate. 3,900 is the right price on FanDuel. Arguably, it's 100 cheap. He should be over 4. But that's 1,200 too cheap on DK. This is like a $5,800 player at least on the DraftKings slate. So major discount for Lou Bob over on DK. Get to Eloy Jimenez, some Andrew Vaughn, some Jake Berger, and all their right-handed power. They're inconsistent guys. Berger is not the guy who hit 17 home runs earlier this season. He's the guy who's currently slashing 219, 267 in the front end of the triple slash. But he does have power upside. He does have a lot of potential to hit a home run in this spot. So 1 through 6, you can bolt in some Yasmani Grandal, some Sebi Zavala, some Zach Remillard if you want to, if you're going over the top with White Sox stacks. I think it's a killer spot. Vegas likes it a lot. And then we've got Dylan Cease on the bump for the White Sox, and he's underpriced on the DK slate too. $8,000 for Dylan Cease against the Athletics? Are you kidding me? That's a killer price. 10-3 for Dylan Cease on this slate on FanDuel is correct. He projects, that's the top projection on the board, I think. 40.8. That's a killer projection. I know he hasn't been quite himself this year, but 27.8% strikeouts is one of the higher marks on this slate for current year strikeout output. And We're talking about a guy who had 30.4 last year, 31.9 the year before. Like, between guys who have dipped from the 30s into the 20s for strikeout rate, he's certainly performing a lot better than Corbin Burns is right now. And he comes in this much cheaper against the Athletics? Come on. That's an easy spot. Jake Swales says, "Love Cease. He finally figured out the pitch clock." Oh, I hadn't been following the pitch clock saga with Cease. So if that's the case, then so much the better. But yeah, it's just getting decent starts from him. 13.3% swinging, 27.8% on the strikeout rate. Still walking too many overall. But if the pitch clock was maybe the culprit on that, then I would expect that to come down a little bit. And again, you just don't get a better matchup than going up against the A's. Ryan Noda dropping to 6th in the lineup doesn't help the A's. Esteury Ruiz hitting 9th. It's just stupid. I talked about that yesterday. I talked about it again in the article today. When you've got one good thing going for your franchise, and it's this kid chasing 100 stolen bases, why in the hell would you drop him to 9th in the batting order and so that you can hit Tony Kemp leadoff? Who cares? Are you trying to win ball games? You're not. You're not trying to win games. You're the Oakland A's. You're trying to move to Las Vegas. Why not let this kid lead off and get the extra couple plate appearances and chase 100 stolen bases? He's got 41 on the year in 352 tries. If he got 700 plate appearances, he'd have a shot at it. Stupid. Stupid organization. Anyway, Tony Kemp, JJ Bleday, Carlos Perez, Seth Brown, Jace Peterson, Ryan Noda, Jordan Diaz, Tyler Wade. Wade is an interesting mix and match piece for late lineup action at a cheap price. Better on FanDuel. He's only a shortstop on DK, so that really, really tempers it. Probably takes it off the table entirely. But getting 3 positions for the dead minimum out of him, he's a toolsy guy. He's never done it really at the major league level. 4 stolen bases and 37 plate appearances, no home runs this year. But he's a toolsy enough guy that at that price with 3 positions where I can move him around, if I'm going to A's, or if I just need a stupid min-price guy to stick in to any one of those 3 spots in a lineup, you can maybe go to that as like a cheap, just flex play. But it's not good. It's not a good player. He's going up against a high strikeout, good pitcher. So I don't love it. It's just sitting there. Noda is a good on-base skills guy who should be hitting second instead of JJ Bleday. Perez is miscast as a 3-hitter. Seth Brown is good, 2,800, 2,400, but has not really been good this year. 201, 265, 367, and 151. He had 25 homers, stole 11 bases just last year, so I believe in Seth Brown on the left side. But this is a really bad lineup. It's not even the good version of this lineup. Fire away with Dylan C. shares, especially at 8,000 on DK. I expect he'll be crushingly popular at that spot, at that price. If he's not, take advantage. If he is, I think you're still going to it. At 10-3 on FanDuel, I just hope his ownership is a little bit limited because I think it's a killer spot. So really enthusiastic about Cease, really enthusiastic about White Sox bats. No real love for Kyle Muller, no real love for the A's bats. Jake, yes, it does unlock bats if you go to Muller. It's probably a worse option than Gomber at Coors yesterday, because at least Gomber was pitching against the Tigers. It was at Coors Field, but I don't know. I need this guy back if I'm doing it, and even this guy probably isn't good enough for me. 24-ish% strikeouts in 8 starts, 36 and 2/3 2 years ago, but still a 4.88 xFIP, a 4.17 ERA, all this premium contact. Limited home runs, but a lot of premium contact there. It's dicey. And he hasn't been pitching well in Vegas either. He's got like a 6 ERA in Vegas since they sent him down. I'm not sure what the strikeouts look like. I can pull it up. We got a few minutes. It's 2:49. Slate starts at 4:05. Only a couple more games to talk through, so let's take a quick peek. So in AAA Las Vegas, since they sent him down after those ugly 10 starts, he's got a 5.73 xFIP and a 6.59 ERA with a 17.7% strikeout rate. That's a, if I'm not mistaken, PCL team, Pacific Coast League, which is a lot of places that play like Coors Field in AAA, but these are still not good numbers. You're hunting for the guy who, before the trade last year in AAA with Atlanta, was pitching at a 29.3% strikeout rate. That's the guy we want. AAA the year before in 21 with Atlanta, 27% strikeout rate. Still walked too many. In 22, he really pulled the walks together. He was looking like a good pitcher. I actually have him stashed in the minors on my on that dynasty team because I thought that he was a good pitcher. He was a highly regarded kid, ranked still fairly highly as a prospect, but damn, it has not been good. Can you take a few shots at that $5,000 price to unlock some of those Atlanta hitters in combination with other excellent things? You can, Jake. Certainly you can. But like I talked about yesterday, even though it got thrown back in my face by Mr. Gomber yesterday, I still believe that we're looking for the probable rather than the possible in a lot of ways with DFS. And I think there's just so many good options today that you don't need to get carried away with it if you do it. And it's probably not going to work out. Let's put it that way. There's a little bit of a path to success given that it does unlock so many bats. And you don't have one of those like oddball $4,000 3-inning opener type plays today. So very reluctantly, yes, you can do it, but it's probably not a play that I'm looking to make if I'm playing on DK. I think there's other ways to get to enough bats that's probably not going to be our differentiator. Probably. Speaking of the Braves, look at all those high prices. Look at all those high home run totals. Good Lord. Oh, and Murph's in the lineup. The projected I had Darno in the lineup instead of Murph. So we're back to 7 players out of 9 with at least 14 home runs on the season. That's pretty good. They lost 4 games in the month of June. Best record since they were playing in Milwaukee as a franchise. Hit ludicrous amount of home runs, franchise record for a month in home runs. Hit 6 yesterday to get to, I think it was 61 for the month. Just an outrageously good ball club. I was texting my buddies yesterday. This may well be the best lineup I've ever seen day to day, top to bottom. They're really, really good. And they're just relentless. And they just hit for so much power. And they can get on base. And they don't strike out that much. They're just so goddamn good. Their 8-hitter is an all-star who plays 3 positions still, by the way, on FanDuel at 2,800. Just keep on taking those shares of Arcia at the bottom of the lineup here. Their 9-hitter was the Rookie of the Year last year. He struggled badly in the first half of the season, but has 7 home runs, 9 stolen bases, and a 99 WRC plus now. Just bonkers. 4 players in the lineup have played every game. Is that right? I didn't realize that. What is it? Acuna, Albies, Arcia, and Harris? Not Harris. Harris missed time. Olsen's played every day. I didn't realize that. But yeah, I mean, it's just such a consistent lineup too. This is the lineup that they roll out almost every single day. They're easy to talk about because they play 1 through 9. This is the team that you can absolutely click together in whatever fits into your lineup. If you're at, if you've got a handful of dollars left and you click on Ozuna and it's, shit, I can't afford Ozuna. Just go to Eddie Rosario. Just go to Mikey Harris. Well, Harris is more expensive on DK. But just drop to one of these other guys. They're perfect replacements for one another. So you can roster this in basically any combination. You're just looking at ownership. You're obviously at the bottom of the lineup. You might drop a plate appearance. But it's perfectly viable to go to all these guys 1 through 9. Acuna, I didn't fact check the tweet that I saw, but somebody tweeted that first player in history to go 20-35 before the All-Star game. I don't know that that's true, but it feels true. Either way, 20 home runs and 37 stolen bases on July 1st is bonkers. He's so good. 6,500, 4,600, totally worth getting to. Just a dynamite player. Starting to, 334 average. Is Luis Arias sweating at 390? Probably not. But is Estrella Ruiz sweating at the bottom of the lineup with 41 total stolen bases ahead of Acuna's 37? Probably. Outrageous talent. Ozzy Albies finally priced up to appropriate levels. I spent the first 3 months of the season talking about how Ozzy Albies is too cheap every day. He's finally a $6,000 player on DK. He's the best second baseman in baseball. 18 home runs on the season, 6 stolen bases, 234 ISO, 111 WRC plus. Yes, I include Marcus Semien when I say that. I think Albies is better, at least right now. I don't include Mookie Betts when I say that. Mookie Betts is an outfielder in my mind. Tommy David Walker says, Tara, I know this wouldn't be data we look at, but do you have an easy way to see the White Sox record at Oakland the last 20 years? I only ask because I believe it's insanely awful. Not off the top of my head. I can see if I can just Google that and it comes up. I'm glad you prefaced it the way you did because now I know that you're not thinking that this is... I think you think that this is just an interesting piece of trivia, not something DFS relevant because obviously guys from 20 years ago are not going to be playing today. So let's look. White Sox at Oakland record 2000 through 2023. No, it doesn't look like an easy way to find it. Yeah, I don't think I'm going to be able to find that overly easily. I mean, we're talking about a lot of clunker White Sox teams in that run, some good Oakland teams in that run. So it's not totally surprising. But yeah, certainly not something that, to the start of your point there, certainly not something that I would factor in for a stat muse is a good idea. Maybe they'll. The Chicago White Sox, according to StatMuse, that was a good call. According to StatMuse, the White Sox have a 31-56 record versus the Athletics on the road since the year 2000. 87 games, 31-56, 307 ribbies, 71 homers, 615 strikeouts in 3,303 plate appearances by 1,077 total batters. A 243, 305, 361 triple slash with a 666 OPS. Mark of the beast. Yeah, nothing that we care about for evaluating today's spot, obviously, but that is definitely an interesting piece of trivia that they've been so bad on the road in Oakland over the last 23 years. Who would have known? It's also kind of bonkers that 23 years ago is just the year 2000. That's also weird. A lot of weird stuff like that when you start being around for half a century. Where were we? So talking about the Braves lineup, obviously top to bottom, dominant, excellent options. They're going up against Eury Perez, though, who is a premium rookie pitcher. He's been great this season. We talked about him the last time in terms of they want to limit his innings going into, after the All-Star break. He might sit for a while, not get as many starts, keep his innings down. He went out and pitched, I think, 7 innings that day, obviously, so it wasn't a factor for them that day, which kind of sucked because he had a really good game and I didn't have much of them, or any of them, I don't think. I don't know that I'm going to limit him because of that now. If they're going to give him the innings while he's still pitching, then obviously I want to be there. The limiting factor in this one is the matchup against the Braves. Still getting an okay projection, but this isn't a great projection at 10-1 on FanDuel. It is a fairly effective projection for an $8,500 pitcher on DK, though. So I think there's a little bit of potential there. 30% strikeout, or 29.2 in 47 innings, 9 starts. Only a 2.16% home run rate. There is a little bit of premium contact in play, obviously, with the elevated hard hits, approaching 90 miles an hour of exit velo, but he's been spectacular. 1.34 ERA. He's probably more this guy over time. But to just put up these numbers in 9 starts as a 20-year-old, that's a very talented pitcher. So it doesn't temper the Braves really in Vegas. They're still 5+ in the implied runs. It's obviously not really impacting them too much in terms of the power upside, although all these guys were above the magic number yesterday, and we get 3 of them dipping below today, but still like right at it, let's be honest. So maybe a few shares of Perez. You can use him on FanDuel at 10-1. Like, there's no reason he couldn't come out and put up a solid 5-6 innings, handful of strikeouts. The Braves are not bad for strikeouts by any means, but there are a few guys in that lineup that, Olsen, 27.9%, a couple guys in the mid to low 20s. It's not a great spot for strikeouts, but there's some, and he's talented enough to find them. It's just, does he avoid the 7 home runs that the Braves are planning on hitting today? The wind's blowing out. It's warm. It's not good conditions. There's also storms in the area, so if he gets a delay, he's probably not coming back out to the mound. There's a lot of reasons to avoid the Eury Perez play, unfortunately, again today. It's probably not one to take out of the pool by any means, and if the public's not going there, it's a spot that I think is valuable enough to throw a few darts at. But probably the worst matchup in baseball, with all those conditional elements in play, with the idea that they still might want to limit his innings in play. It's just tough to get to. FanDuel, it's tougher to get to than DK. More in play at the DK price. Marlins bats against Charlie. I like Charlie. I think Charlie's pitching fairly well. He's basically pitching like Charlie Morton. The walks are up a little bit. The whip is up a little bit. But the power hasn't been lousy. The strikeouts are still in place where they've been. 13% swinging. 31.5% CSW is aggressively good. 26.3% strikeout rate. For only 89.98 going up against the Marlins? Why not? Marlins are at best an average team with a top-heavy lineup. So I can take my shots with Charlie Morton here. Arias, Soler, Brian De La Cruz, Jazz Chisholm. That's your four-man if you're going to Marlins against Charlie. You can bolt in Garrett Cooper. You can bolt in Julie Gurriel. Wendell, Gene Segura, Nick Fortes at the bottom of the lineup are pretty skippable. So it's 1 through 6 with most of the focus on 1 through 4 if I'm going to Marlins. Obviously, you've got the best hit tool in the league in Luis Arias. Ridiculous power in Jorge Soler. Those guys go together well, just the two of them. And then getting Toolsy Jazz Chisholm back into the mix here is a big lift to this lineup. 9 homers, 14 stolen bases for Jazz and only 176 plate appearances. Dynamite player, needs to stay healthy and be there every day for them. But these numbers I think would be a lot better, a lot higher, obviously, if he hadn't missed 150 plate appearances here. We'd be looking probably at 15, 16 home runs and probably approaching 30 stolen bases. Very good player. I really believe in Jazz quite a bit here. So top 4 with moderate interest in 5 and 6 from the Marlins lineup. 1 through 9 for the Braves lineup. Definite interest in Charlie Morton. I think that's a good spot here. I don't want to undersell the Charlie spot. He projects out quite well. The Marlins are not a good power hitting bunch. They're not a good run creating bunch. Non-threatening lineup. The top end could get to him, certainly. But like the spot for Charlie. And then, only minor interest because Yuri Perez on his own is so good. But I just think it's a brutal spot, brutal matchup. Last game up, 302. Anthony DeSclafani, Justin Verlander. Do we have the Giants? We do, right? Somebody said it before. Jock leading off, Wilmer, JD, Pat Bailey. Let me drop this in here real quick. All right, so all the lineups here. So interesting version of the Giants lineup for sure, with Jock with all his power on the leadoff spot. No Lamont Wade to set the table for everybody else, but in his limited plate appearances, Jock has also gotten on base really well at 385 when he's not crushing the ball over the wall. You're obviously looking to Jock for home run upside against Verlander, who's been allowing a little bit of premium contact, a little bit of power this year. 45.1% hard hits, 91.2 on the exit velo, 3.36% home runs. Certainly uncharacteristic of Justin Verlander. Strikeouts are way down at 20.6. ERA at 4.11 is a very human ERA. It's not a bad ERA, but it's a human one. It's Justin Verlander, not Verlander-esque. 4.30 on the xFIP is same story. Not completely terrible, but certainly not Justin Verlander. But he is not at all priced like Justin Verlander. Like I said at the top of the show, we're seeing him priced as just this guy. These prices do not relate to anything in Justin Verlander's past. So this is just priced for this kind of a pitcher going up against the Giants, who have plenty of strikeouts available in the lineup. They're a hard-hitting bunch, but there's plenty of strikeouts there. So at price, 83.88, you can see a good projection. The model knows most of this, and he's still coming out the other side with an okay projection here. He hasn't been good in a single spot all season. In 10 starts, I haven't seen a good Justin Verlander start yet. Some have been okay, but yeah, it's not been great. But he's priced effectively for that. So I'll continue to take my shots with Verlander. At the same time, I'm going to want some Giants on the other side of that. Jock, Wilmer, JD, good 3-man off the top. I would probably, instead of Bailey, go to Estrada, particularly on FanDuel. Bailey, for sure, on DK at 35 is a good play hitting cleanup. Blake Sable, a second catcher, or you can slot him into the outfield. Good power bat on the left side. Slater, playable, veteran type, so is Crawford, but moderate output from those two guys. And then Luis Matos at the bottom of the lineup is more a hit tool and speed kind of a prospect, defense kind of a prospect in the outfield, who hasn't really done much at the major league level. So, 1 through 3 is good. Couple of holes. Not a great San Francisco lineup, but definite power upside. I'll take some shares just going up against Verlander here. But I think I'm more interested still, as odd as it is with his current year output, in Justin Verlander shares. I'll take some shares of Mets, but I don't like this lineup when Jeff McNeil's hitting third. Nimmo's a great leadoff hitter. Lindor, for all his struggles this year, still has 16 home runs, a 218 ISO, 9 stolen bases, a 107 WRC plus. I'll just take the discount on Lindor. 4,700, 3,400. He should just, regardless of current year output, and especially when there are good indicators like the power still being here, I'll just take the discount on that player. I just don't like McNeil hitting third here. Pete Alonso, obviously you can go to star home run hitter. Dan Vogelbach is fine, Vogelback rather, is fine for lefty home runs, but he doesn't really hit them all that frequently anymore. 5 on the season and 181. Does have a 50% hard hit rate, which is appealing, but below average for run creation, 135 ISO. Tommy Pham's been a lot better. Tommy Pham, 15.2%, barrels 50, 1.5% hard hits to lead the team. 9 home runs, 9 steals, 227 ISO, 136 WRC plus. Beatty jumping up to 7th. Francisco Alvarez, 8th. Definitely playable parts, young players, young emerging star caliber players for the Mets, but down lineup for a reason. Alvarez, for all his power upside, is now hitting 215, 272, 453, 99 WRC plus. Beatty's been effective, but only 94 WRC plus, 5 homers. And then Luis Guillorme is a defense option. Defense, a minor degree of hit tool there, but very infrequent contributor offensively for Guillorme. Disclafani I didn't talk about. Disclafani, 5,500, 7,700. I might be more inclined to go here and pay the extra 5 than go to Muller at 5,000. Right? If you're looking for that sub 6 play on DraftKings, I believe in Disclafani a lot more than I believe in Kyle Muller right now, especially in the matchup. I think there's enough upside going up against the, at best, mediocre Mets. And I'm not even mediocre Mets. They haven't been that great this year. There's a lot of holes in that lineup. So I think you can get there maybe with Disclafani a little bit more reliably than with Kyle Muller. It's not like he's been bad this year. 4.28 ERA, 4.03 xFIP in 16 starts, 90 and a third innings, 18.4% strikeout rate. Doesn't get himself in trouble, only walks 4.8%. Doesn't give up a ton of power or home runs. 44% hard hits is aggressive, but 7% barrels, 2.41% home runs. He's not a great pitcher, but he's a serviceable league average type veteran with upside for maybe a little bit more. Last year didn't really pitch much, 5 starts, 19 innings. We won't look at that too much, but 167 and 2/3 2 years ago was a very Disclafani-like year. 3.17 ERA, 3.95 xFIP. This is the more honest number. A low whip, a good walk rate, decent strikeouts, not bad for power. If I'm hunting around for a cheapo DK pitcher, I might be more inclined to go to Disclafani for that sub 6 DK pitcher. 77 on FanDuel. I don't know if I even need to go to it. Just kind of slots him in as an also ran on the FanDuel slate. You can. That certainly helps buy some hitters. There's enough potential there. I just don't know if I'm getting my 6 innings and a quality start. 5 innings and a win, I think, is more in play than 6 innings and a quality start for Disclafani. So I like it better on DK. Going to Mets, like I said, Nimmo, Lindor, Alonso off the top. Maybe some Tommy Pham. Jeff McNeil's a slap hitter. He doesn't belong hitting third. 259, 334, 334, .076 ISO, 94 WRC plus. Just, he's a guy when his BABIP isn't there, when hits aren't just, little dying quails dropping into the outfield, as Crash Davis said, that makes a huge, huge difference for this hitter. BABIP for him this year, 285. Which is like, if you're just considering the raw number, fine. There's some hitters in the league that would kill to have a 285 BABIP. But for McNeil, that's not effective. He hit 326, 382, 454 last year because he had a 353 BABIP. Year before, he was down at 251, 319, 360 in a bad year on a 280 BABIP. Came into that year as a 300 career hitter because he had gone 359, 337, and 335 BABIPs his first 3 years in the league. He needs those little base knocks to drop in to find any kind of quality. He doesn't really do very much else at the plate. So I don't love McNeil when he's hitting third. I'd rather get him here, but I don't want to displace Nimmo by any means because Nimmo's a spectacular leadoff hitter. So really, in my opinion, McNeil belongs like down here. I don't even like when they hit him 5 through 7. I don't think he's appropriate in that spot either. I'd rather have him trying to set the table with the limited hit tool. But he's cheap hitting third. If you're building Met stacks, his multi-position on FanDuel, he's a usable part, but he's not a good part. I think that's it. I think that's all the games. Only 7 of them. 3:10. Do have to build some lineups. Slate starts in less than an hour. Take a quick look at the board, and then we will punch out. So it's a slate with a ton of pitching available. I don't see anything I don't really believe in here in terms of like the way these guys are ordered. We've got Cease is my favorite option of the day in that matchup against the A's. Excuse me. Particularly that $8,000 price on DK. That's just way too low. Look at where he's priced. He's priced lower than Verlander against Oakland. He's priced only $300 more than Bailey Ober. What are we doing? So Dylan Cease and Lubob are significant discounts when looking at the White Sox today. Zach Wheeler, terrific spot against the Nationals. A little bit shaved off maybe the strikeout potential given their ability to limit strikeouts. But I really like Wheeler here for 6-7 clean innings, a win, a quality start, and everything that goes with it. Nate Eovaldi, good opportunity against Houston at fair pricing. Decent strikeout pitcher, decent upside. Verlander, for all his flaws, is priced appropriately. Projection might be a little bit high on Verlander here, but I think he could reach it. I still believe that we're going to maybe not get back fully to form, fully to reliability by any means with Verlander, but there's a better pitcher than we've seen overall in there still. Charlie, totally playable at 98.89. Bailey Ober is an option. He's too high priced on FanDuel. He won't be owned at all, but he's a better option on DK. Burns against Pittsburgh is a premium option that ranks just as well as most of these. The difference between Burns at 33 and Eovaldi at 38 is nil. I mean, that's, a strikeout and a half, an inning pitched. So could this guy outperform any of these guys? Absolutely, especially in the matchup against Pittsburgh. Gore, I don't love, particularly not tangling with the Phillies. Bradish, I prefer with his strikeout upside. So if there's a guy who's low for his opportunity in terms of just looking at the raw projection, it's probably Kyle Bradish. Kyle Bradish. I think there's definite upside for strikeouts beyond what the projection is. And at 58, I need to correct that actually. I was saying I forgot he was below 6 as well on DK. If you're going below 6 on DK, it's Kyle Bradish for sure. Then it's Desclafani, and then probably whoever the hell, Kyle Muller. Bit of upside for Oviedo down at the bottom of the board. Probably a little bit of upside beyond that, given the amount of strikeouts that the Brewers provide, but not a great option. I would probably rank him ahead of Muller if I was ranking it. But I mean, there's not an unplayable pitcher on the slate outside of probably Kyle Muller. I don't love the spot from Matt Gore. I don't like Kyle Muller at all. But everybody else on the slate is at least playable, if not good. I think those guys are all good. This guy's decent. This guy's decent. This guy's really good in a terrible spot. This guy's good in a bad spot. So different matchups. These kids would be up here. Playable parts up and down. Interesting slate. All right, I'm going to go build some lineups. I'm going to punch out. Hit the like button. Hit the subscribe. A little thumbs up down there. That guy helps me out a little bit. If you didn't like the show, hit the down button. I'll take those too. I just want feedback. Hit the subscribe. Jump into the Discord. Discord's got a lot of action lately. Tons of good discussion. People hanging out in there talking baseball, watching games, talking movies, talking all sorts of stuff. Discord's totally free. It's linked in the description. It's linked from the top of rotoscouts. The site is rotoscouts. The Twitter handle is rotoscouts. Check it out. Follow it. I appreciate everybody. I'm going to hit the end show button now. Good luck out there, gang.